Okay, and we are live.
Good morning all and welcome. Honorable ministers, distinguished guests, colleagues, artists, creative and cultural professionals, it is with tremendous pleasure that I welcome you all to this event this morning, the launch of the Creative Caribbean, an ecosystem of play for growth and development project. My name is Olenka Jacobs-Bonnick and I'm the Creative Caribbean Project Coordinator. I will be moderating today's proceedings. Ladies and gentlemen, Creative Caribbean is a landmark project for our region. Indeed, it is the first of its kind in terms of its depth, breadth, and scope, as well as the first time our region's creative sector has received such substantial funding for its growth and development. 3 million euros is a significant contribution from the European Union with the support of the Organization of African, Caribbean, and Pacific States under the ACP-EU 11th EDF Fund and Culture Programme. This will be disbursed as grants to eligible applicants over a 3-year period. The United Nations Educational, Scientific and Cultural Organization, UNESCO, the CARICOM Secretariat, and the University of the West Indies joined forces to make this dream of robust and sustainable Caribbean creative sector possible. And we are all very proud to be at the stage as we move to ensure that the cultural and creative industries in 15 Caribbean countries benefit from this much needed initiative. We have a full package organized today, during which we will spend valuable time together so you can gain better understanding and insight of the details of this project and how you can benefit. We have also included some artistic relief in the form of 2 cultural performances. Colleagues, in the coming months, there will be lots to do and unpack as we guide this project towards its aims and ensure that it is fully responding to the 4 main objectives of the ACP-EU Culture Programme: the creation and production of high-quality creative and cultural goods, access to national, regional, and international markets, better and more widespread visual literacy, and improved access to financing. This morning, we also have a lineup of distinguished speakers who will share their common vision for our Creative Caribbean. Now, just a little housekeeping before I hand the virtual floor over to our first speaker. We do have a Q&A segment where we will respond to as many of your questions as we can. So please put your questions in the chat and we will get to them later in the program. Now, it gives me great pleasure to introduce our first speaker to give welcoming remarks. As the Director and Representative of the UNESCO Cluster Office for the Caribbean and Officer in charge of the UNESCO Regional Office for Latin America and the Caribbean, she has dedicated her professional career of more than 20 years to advocating for justice, human rights, and global solidarity. She's deeply committed to equality, standing strong and firm against all forms of discrimination. She's a fearless and steadfast Caribbean leader, providing strategic and operational direction for the sub-regional integration and sustainable development of Caribbean small island developing states as a UNESCO priority group. She's also a lover of museums and photography, as well as the proud owner of an eclectic art collection. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming Dr. Sadia Sanchez-Vegas.
Thank you very much. Mr. Frederick Exel, Deputy Head of Mission, Delegation of the European Union to Jamaica, Belize, the Bahamas, Turks and Caicos, and the Keynote Islands. Dr. Norbert Wichan Ibrahim, Assistant Secretary General, Department of Political Affairs and Human Development, Organization of African, Caribbean, and Pacific States. Dr. Armstrong Alexis, Deputy Secretary General of the CARICOM Secretariat. Dear Professor Sir Hilary Beckles, Vice Chancellor of the University of the West Indies. Dear Debbie Mandi, Project Officer, Graduate Students and Research, the University of the West Indies. dear Caribbean Directors of Culture, dear Secretaries General of the National Commission for UNESCO, dear members of the cultural and creative industries, I wish you all a pleasant morning and afternoon. I am honored to open this event today to celebrate the official launch of Creative Caribbean, an ecosystem of play for growth and development, a joint project by UNESCO, the CARICOM Secretariat, and the University of the West Indies, with significant financial support from the European Union and the Organization of African, Caribbean, and Pacific States. This 40-month joint project aims to stimulate inclusive, diversified, and sustainable growth of the cultural and creative sector in 15 Caribbean countries by improving the enabling creative environment through capacity building, networking, entrepreneurship, knowledge exchange, and awareness-raising activities. Grounded on the 2005 UNESCO Convention for the Protection and Promotion of the Diversity of Cultural Expressions, Creative Caribbean aims to promote research and data collection on cultural and creative industries to facilitate market access and support the development of national artists, registries, cultural policies, and creative industry development acts to incentivize the sector. Through industry grants, Creative Caribbean seeks to support creative and cultural practitioners, build more globally competitive cultural enterprises, and enhancing their professional development to expand their market opportunities. The project builds on the deep-rooted Caribbean creative ecosystem of play. Play references the Caribbean concept of playing mass, which has become a strategy of adaptation used to navigate social, economic, and environmental forces outside the region's control despite centuries of cultural suppression. In this sense, the mechanism of play is built on the following interconnected components. P, planning and research, by building a more comprehensive data-enabled understanding of the sector that will form a reliable basis for analysis and planning. L, literacy and capacity building will extend this data-enabled planning capacity by connecting it through curriculum development, training, children's programming, public performance, film, festivals, and art biennials. A, accelerators and financing will enable increased access to financing through innovative mechanisms, sector revenue, and in-market access through enterprise acceleration and entrepreneurial training. Y, yield and dissemination will form the foundation of a strong cooperation strategy and framework developed to sustain regional planning for the cultural and creative industries. The Creative Caribbean activities will be implemented harmonically with those of the European Union funded program, Transcultura, integrating Cuba, the Caribbean, and the European Union through culture and creativity. These two major initiatives will put in place coordinated multi-stakeholders and multi-layered cooperation strategies to benefit the prosperity of the cultural and creative industries in the Caribbean. On behalf of UNESCO, I would like to express my heartfelt gratitude to the European Union and the Organization of the African, Caribbean, and Pacific States, whose generous financial support enabled the implementation of this project. Our organizations share the mutual conviction that culture and creativity lie at the heart of what makes us human. They are at the core of our mind and our soul as they nourish our spirit in freedom and nurture what is believed to be one of humanity's original most renewable resources, namely cultural diversity. I am certain that the Creative Caribbean will significantly enhance the protection and promotion of the diversity of cultural expression by empowering the cultural and creative community to contribute to a more prosperous, peaceful, diverse, inclusive, and sustainable development. I thank you for your kind attention.
Thank you very much, Director, for those thought-provoking, welcoming remarks. I note with interest your comment on why art, culture, and creativity matter. They lie at the heart of what makes us human. They nourish our spirit and freedom and nurture humanity's most renewable resource, cultural diversity. Thank you so very much. It is now my pleasure to welcome our next speaker, who will be bringing us opening remarks on behalf of the Vice Chancellor of the University of the West Indies, Sir Hilary Beckles. Please join me in welcoming Ms. Debbie Amandi, Project Officer, Graduate Studies and Research from the University of the West Indies.
Good morning to everyone and good afternoon to our colleagues outside of the Caribbean region. On behalf of the Vice Chancellor of the University of the West Indies, Professor Sir Hilary Beckles, and the Pro-Vice Chancellor of Graduate Studies and Research, Professor Rosemary Bell Antwine, I bring you greetings from the University of the West Indies. It is indeed a great pleasure to have reached the point that we have now formally launching this incredibly innovative project for which the university is very, very pleased to be part of. I affirm all that Director Sanchez has already said, so that I won't repeat them, and I also observe all protocols regarding our donor agencies, for which we very, very sincerely thank you. We have a long relationship with the European Union and the Organization of the African, Caribbean, and Pacific States. And so it is indeed, for us, it is a continuation of a relationship that is growing deeper and stronger over time. This project in particular is extremely close to us because we have realized that over the decades in working with our cultural industries throughout the Caribbean, both the large and small operators, the extreme advantage and the value of culture. Culture is language that everyone understands, irrespective of how we speak in terms of our different verbal languages. It is an expression. And we have seen within the Caribbean that over the decades in our long history, that we have intertwined a number of our Caribbean-based culture, as well as the culture of other regions from the peoples who have come and to live in the Caribbean. We are extremely, therefore, very, very pleased with the structure and the relationship that this project is bringing to bear with our cultural sector for the Caribbean region, and indeed by also twinning it with other regions as we bring our peoples together in one collaborative, comprehensive structure. We have noticed that within our cultural industries and our creative sectors that we have, while there are a lot of diversities, there are also quite a lot of commonalities. And so with these commonalities together, we will intertwine them into this tapestry of one people, bringing together all our different cultures, our different organizations, our different modes of operations into a system that will advance our developmental agenda. And in this light, we are, of course, very pleased to partner with UNESCO, our key organization here. We are also very pleased that our CARICOM partners are also part of this initiative. In a short while, as we roll out the program itself, you will get into more details and you will see more information coming forth to give you the richness of what this project is about, what it will bring to the Caribbean region, and what it will bring to the peoples of the Caribbean in particular, not only in advancing our cultural agenda, but the entrepreneurship of the Caribbean, whereby our business sectors, as we know, which has been so devastated through the recent 2-year COVID lockdowns, and which we need to spur a number of more business initiatives. This project is going to help advance those. And so again, it is with great pleasure that I am very pleased to have been part of this project and to be allowed to give welcoming remarks. So thank you all. I now, of course, wish this project all success, all the different players and all the industries that will come into this, and all the peoples who are online today. Thank you all very much, and I wish you all a very successful meeting. Thank you.
Thank you so very much, Ms. Amandi, for bringing those greetings and remarks. I would like to thank you also and the University of the West Indies for underscoring the extreme advantage and value of culture, particularly in advancing entrepreneurship in our region. That's a very important point. And it's very important that our largest and most prestigious academic institution recognizes this. Thank you so very much for those remarks. So our next speaker will be representing the Organization of African, Caribbean, and Pacific States. The OACPS, or ACP as it is more commonly known, was created right here in the Caribbean 47 years ago in Guyana in 1975 by virtue of the Georgetown Agreement. The OACPS has a mandate to support sustainable development and poverty reduction within its member states, as well as their greater integration into the world's economy. Bringing us opening remarks today on behalf of the OCPS is the Assistant Secretary General, Department of Political Affairs and Human Development, Dr. Norbert Richard Ibrahim. Join me in welcoming him.
Dear partners and dear participants, I'm Aya Kasasa. I'm the expert in charge of culture at the OCPS. Dr. Ibrahim is currently caught in a meeting of our subcommittee of ambassadors and has asked me to step in for him. So I'm delighted in the name of the Secretary General of the Organization of ACP States, His Excellency George Rebelo Pinto Chicote, to speak this morning at the invitation of our partners, members of the consortium led by CARICOM, the University of West Indies and UNESCO, and to join you, to welcome you to the launch of the ACP-EU Culture Programme for the Caribbean. The OACPS represents 79 developing countries across 3 continents, governed by the revised Georgetown Agreement. This ceremony today is the culmination of years of effort, during which, in close collaboration with the European Commission, the OACPS Secretariat has worked to bring financing offers closer to the operators on the ground. To this end, we have approached regional organizations, as well as culture and development professionals in our regions, and entrusted them with the task of launching calls for proposals that best correspond to your realities and needs. I am particularly pleased that the ACP Ministers of Culture meeting in Niamey in Niger in 2019 have reaffirmed their commitment to making cultural and creative industries a real driver for development and to putting in place mechanisms to support the beneficiaries. Indeed, as a performance indicator, culture contributes to achieving the Sustainable Development Goals of the 2030 Agenda. The main objective of the Creative Caribbean, an ecosystem of play for growth and development program that we are officially launching today, is to contribute to making culture a catalyst for economic development, social cohesion. In the current context, funding is even more essential because of the worrying implication of the COVID-19 pandemic in the creative and cultural sectors. How do we build a more effective ecosystem of support and encouragement? How can we contribute to a better understanding of the creative industries? How can we ensure greater participation of young people? How can we encourage and promote the leadership of women? To answer these questions, I turn to all the members of the consortium to congratulate and encourage them. The goals are ambitious, and it is together that we will strengthen and continue to boost Caribbean's creative and cultural industries. Before concluding, I would particularly like to thank our main and historic partner, the European Union, the European Commission, which has been supporting our development efforts, in particular for culture in the OACPS countries for many, many years. I know that during this launch, you are going to give us an insight into the mechanism that we have jointly put in place and which is now coming to a fruition in this region. I can see that Dr. Ibrahim has joined us, and I will maybe let him say a few words to this launch. Thank you very much for your attention. I think we might have a little challenge in joining from Brussels.
C'est bon?
Ouais.
It's okay, we can hear you.
Dear partners, dear participants, I am delighted in the name of Secretary General of the Organization of ACP States, OACPS, His Excellency George Rebelo Pinto Chikoti, to speak this morning at the invitation of our partners, members of the consortium led by CARICOM, the University of the West Indies and UNESCO, to welcome you to the launch of the ACP-EU Culture Programme for Caribbean, Creative Caribbean, and ecosystem of play for growth and development. I am Ibrahim Norbert Richard, Assistant Secretary General of OACPS, which represents 79 developing countries across 3 continents, governed by the revised Georgetown Agreement. This morning's ceremony is the accumulation of years of effort, during which, in close collaboration with the European Commission, the OACPS Secretariat has worked to bring financing offers closer to the operators on the ground. To this end, we have approached regional organizations as well as culture and development professionals in our regions and entrusted them with the task of launching calls for proposals that best correspond to your realities and needs. I am particularly pleased that the ACP Ministers of Culture meeting in Niamey in 2019 have reaffirmed their commitment to making cultural and creative industries a real driver of development and to putting in place sorry, I have been said that my colleague Gaia has read my speak. So I just want to say that it's my pleasure to welcome everybody to this event, and I want to assure you the commitment of OACPS to support all your engagement. So I want to wish you to have a good meeting, and to assure you that you can come back to us every time you need our support. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Ibrahim and Ms. Kasasa, for your comments. We really do appreciate, Dr. Ibrahim, you taking time out of your busy schedule to join us immediately after your meeting. Thank you so much. I would also like to highlight a comment that was made that I think is very much indicative of what this program represents. Proposals that correspond to our realities and needs. That is very much indeed what the Creative Caribbean project is about. And with the support of the European Union and the ACP, we have been able to craft a program that does, we hope, does just that. And you will all find out some more about this later on in the program. But thank you so very much. We appreciate your presence. Thank you so much. The European Union is and intends to remain a champion of freedom, of expression, and diversity. These values are central to artistic expression, creativity, culture, and the EU has a keen focus not only on the generation of art, but on what culture and creativity actually do. Culture and creativity provide useful avenues for dialogue, reflection, reconciliation, and respect for human rights and democratic values. The EU's international cultural relations strives to support culture as an engine for sustainable, social, and economic development, to promote culture and intercultural dialogue for peaceful intercommunity relations, and to reinforce cooperation on cultural heritage. Thus, culture cannot just be narrowly defined as entertainment. Culture is at the center of what defines communities, societies, and nations. The final opening remarks are brought to us today by the Deputy Head of Mission, Delegation of the European Union to Jamaica, Belize, the Bahamas, Turks and Caicos, and the Cayman Islands. A keen consumer and promoter of culture himself, he loves theater and opera, and is an avid reader of nonfiction literature. Please join me in welcoming Mr. Frederick Eckfeldt.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Everything is clear, you hear me? Wonderful. Honorable Ministers of Culture from across the Caribbean, Director of Culture, senior representatives from UNESCO, CARICOM, and University of West Indies, distinguished participants, members of the media, good morning. It's a pleasure, it's truly a pleasure to be with you virtually for the launch of this timely and game-changing project. I would like to extend greetings on behalf of my ambassador, Marianne Van Steen, a keen supporter of creative and culture industries in the Caribbean, and especially in Jamaica, who could not, unfortunately, not participate today, but it's my honor to replace her. The Caribbean continues to distinguish itself through its rich tradition in the creative and cultural industries. I've been for 4 years in Jamaica, and I can witness that. I can confirm. We see this rich tradition everywhere through the dynamism of its food, sports, fashion, music, dance, and other art forms across the region. I mentioned sports because it's part of culture, and I believe that. This provides a clear pathway for the EU to build out international cultural relations by working with cultural actors in partner countries across the region. Culture is key for the European Union, as been said before, notably because it contributes to several sustainable development goals by acting as both an enabler and an important component in human development. It's also hard to overstate the importance of culture in facilitating economic growth, as well as promoting dialogue and respect for the human rights and democratic values. Culture provides a unique prism through which we understand who we are and who we want to be. There has been growing interest in the socioeconomic value of the culture and creative industries in Jamaica and across the Caribbean. I've seen that throughout the years I've been here. And it's true, it's a treasure, but there is more to be done. The momentum is building towards across the region to move the needle forward now by developing stronger ecosystems that will allow cultural actors to make a way for themselves. That's why the European Union delegation that I'm proud to represent here today in Jamaica is energized about the today's launch of the Creative Caribbean, an ecosystem of play for growth and development. Throughout the partnership with UNESCO, CARICOM, and University of West Indies, this will be materialized. With funding support of 3 million euros, in Jamaican terms, 505 million Jamaican dollars, Creative Caribbean will provide grants to creative and cultural practitioners to grow more globally competitive businesses and enhance their professional development. This is a step in the right direction as we push to build back better from the adverse impact.
We have lost you, Mr. Ekveld. Are you, I think you may be muted.
Sorry, I'm back?
Yes.
Wonderful. So I said that the European Union is coming with 505 million Jamaican dollars to materialize this new cultural program, Creative Caribbean, an ecosystem of play for growth and development. And this is timely because we need to come out from the economic difficulties of COVID-19, not just because of that, but I think it's quite timely that this program is being implemented now. I should add that Creative Caribbean complements other EU-funded culture activities in the region, such as Transcultura, a program for cooperation on cultural heritage. Additionally, through the EU UNESCO expert facility, we are providing technical support for the development of legislation for Jamaica's creative economy. I would like to commend the respective governments, CARICOM, UNESCO, and the University of the West Indies for a steady commitment to advancing the creative and cultural industries. The European Union is hopeful that creative entrepreneurs will take their craft to the next level by leveraging the opportunities provided by Creative Caribbean. What we think, what we write, what we express artistically, how we interact, how we greet foreigners, our gastronomy, all these aspects contribute to culture. And it shows that culture is not just entertainment and an industry among others, is at the center of our societies. Being interested in culture means being curious of the other, to be interested and to respect other expressions of culture. That's why I want to take this opportunity to express my solidarity with Ukraine, that is being deprived of the right to exist, and which culture is being dismissed by Russia. Ukraine has a strong culture, and is among us a nation that deserves to exist in the international community. And its culture is showing us how important it is for a nation to have a foundation on which to rest on. So let me thank you for enabling me to express myself today, and I wish you all the best for this magnificent conference that has started so well.
Thank you very much, Mr. Echtfeldt. We appreciate your contribution. And once again, thank the EU for this tremendous support. You mentioned something that I would like to just hone in on a little bit, moving the needle forward. That is indeed where we are at in our regional development when it comes to creative and cultural industries. And it is wonderful to know that our three organizations, UNESCO, the European Union, ACP, University of the West Indies, and CARICOM are now at a point where we are moving the needle forward. So we thank you once again for your comments, and we look forward to continuing this partnership with you. Right, now.
Olenka, you are muted.
You're muted.
My apologies. So now we segue into some artistic relief with a pre-recorded video performance by the award-winning Barbadian spoken word group, Frenetic Arts. Frenetic Arts is an artist-led and youth-focused nonprofit, providing artistic young people with exciting opportunities to perform, collaborate, and network while nurturing confidence and social awareness. Enjoy.
I wrote a calypso. Can I popularize poetry? But the words of the others echo in my head, you see. I was never the sharpest tool in the shed, no matter how much times I tried to sharpen with Oxford and Collins. Metal can only sharpen metal so much before it begins to.
In the Caribbean, we tell stories. Got heroes like Ossie Moore and Anansi. But did you hear of the lonesome gardener? Come on, get a little closer.
How do I begin my journey to creativity without a map and a compass that only points south due to the magnetic pull of negativity anytime I dare to share my dream?
Am I an artist? I've heard the grass is greener on the other side. And Eden, even of luxury and fame, where people in town know my name. I've surveyed the cultural landscape and found it covered in a blockade of bush. A course through uncharted lands. Where every attempt to touch it slices my hand, obstructed by blades of grass that scratch with every.
You can't do that.
Full of pimplers and cowish, vicious vines that love to lie, whispering.
This ain't a real job to do.
Hit too tall to climb, too thick to see through. But I got a sword that brand new, sharpened by every innovative idea I've ever had at 2 a.m. My weapon is as sharp as my pen, and I gotta get through this wall of twigs and leaves. So when the way clear, then we know it was me.
As I cut a path, maybe I could cement my name with longevity. If only I could keep swinging with consistency. Can I be Sparrow to Calypso? Can I popularize poetry? But the words of the others echo in my head, you see. I was never the sharpest tool in the shed, no matter how much times I tried to sharpen with Oxford and Collins. Metal could only sharpen metal so much before it begins to rust. So, as I cut this bush, I burn it to forge the fire of passions within me. But this moisture in the bush is made of salt water. I am an island in a sea of doubt. How can I blame them for not believing in me when I have no self-belief, just a head filled with idealistic dreams of a peasant turned legend with no way to execute? Question marks hang off the edge of my legacy. How will they remember me? Can I cut through this bush to make a mark in this industry? Can I keep it cut long enough to cement something more concrete? Or will I succumb to this ever-growing mediocrity that force people to spend their lives in factories, forever slaving away for companies, doing all the work and getting a fraction of the money? That can never be me. I'd rather be broke and artistically free as I can be, a nomad with a notepad, trying to be noteworthy. Only if I can get these people to notice me.
On the path to creativity, our hero discovers the spirit of negativity is like no other. What you really looking to do in truth? I love to see the folly of you. You come in here thinking you could change things with your new tricks like artists before you then break new ground and still get bodied in licks. You know how many times somebody beat back deforestation just to be forgotten by the next generation? And in a few years that happen, this thicket gets thicker and harder for the next gardener.
I mean, look around you. Don't you see the seeds of doubt have begun to sprout right beneath your feet? What you think made this forest? These branches bent more than the will of those who thought they could accomplish what you strive for right now. This ground has made directors lose their sense of direction, never to be found. Made actors act out of character when they carry a financial burden for too long. Even made dancers move different when their most recent bills come. So why are you an exception as a poet or musician? I mean, how steady can your cash flow really be if it is trickling from streams? How will you pay for a mortgage properly when you could barely own your intellectual property? Your cultural policies limit your possibilities, reducing artistic activities to popularity contests. Or maybe competitions where corporations only invest when their name can be printed big and bold when they hand over the check. The cultural industries are in their infancy and you expect to be a full-time creative as an adult. You're making beer malt sport. See, we don't have any stable infrastructure. They call it the orange economy, but really it should be amber. With the way it stalls artists bumper to bumper, traffic lines with no green lights and nothing but red tape. And if you build a highway, the progress will the cost be the grassroots.
With all due disrespect, your arrogance starting to get to me. I mean, look around. How many wealthy poets do you see in this country? The better question is poetry even an industry? Of course, there's usually for the month of Black History, for you to shout words about our ancestry, and for the next 28 days is make you believe that you could be somebody, but then in the street you just like Black History. Forget you even exist for the next 11 months onto the next racist incident, and then for a brief moment you get back your relevance. And every 3 minutes and 30 seconds of stage time they will use you as intermission. You may look at the people that they toss a few commissions, but those come with the requirements of 10 years experience. Do you really plan to starve until then? Or ask for sponsorship so your work could get owned by the government, and then they will never even give your name a mention? So what are your options?
You want to be a creative, right? Sounds cool, but you either left in or becoming a teacher because them ain't nothing but here for you to do. Sure, you'll have work during independence and emancipation, but them is only 2 out of how many seasons? You can't save for a rainy day when you living from gig to gig pay, and how long you gotta wait for a check to get clear? You would do a show in February and see the money in your bank account come New Year. Meanwhile, the air cakes won't fill your belly, but you gotta survive all 31 weeks in January. But is how you think that these people really want what you meant? Unless it's for the tourists, don't expect the forward sis. Them want quote nut palm trees and chatter hoses. You about here making things that remind people oppression exists. You trying to sell depression when people spend thousands for escapism, and you here making music? Sound real nice. Make sure it's something to walk up to if you want to get recognized. Otherwise, don't waste your time. What is our hero to do now? Will they become overcome by doubt? Then while the hero's head is still bent, enters the spirit of encouragement.
Just think about it. Those big lights shining, illuminating your hidden potential. Your future brighter than any living or dying star you've ever seen. You've been having supernova dreams as you slumber in the slums, but I promise the morning will come where the heights you reach will be reflected on your address, where gatekeepers will need to be buzzed in, your name buzzed in and written on bosoms, who then boast about being approached by you. Trust me, in this game of life, I done coached a few. Done seen creativity turn homeless names to household names, turn hopeless romantics to modern magnets. This cultural landscape is a maze, and you have to understand its rules. Cause you sunk a bus and get about 1 million views in a week, so you can imagine a year. But then you could win about 5 Grammys. Got you granny saying, good there, you win again. Crowd keeping so much noise, it remind granny when the coyotes used to sneak into the foul pen. Creating is so intoxicating.
Could you imagine a world without passion? No wondrous words, no powerful paintings, no cool fashions.
It's in the expression. The way one can tap into the cultural zeitgeist, 2 people can splice a single thought into 3 interpretations of art.
Reflecting the unspoken thoughts of all the people around in words, movement, and sound. Is that not magic?
Is it not?
With our bare hands.
Creative shrine from stars, the faces of forefathers we have lost.
Decorating on desks, new lessons when teachers didn't know we were paying attention.
Carving through cavernous emotions, leaving others to one day find it in the dark. Making is a devotion.
It is a livelihood.
It is a confession.
It is an art.
The world offers us a frame and a glance, and with our bare hands we make infinity mirrors.
Life imitating us, imitating life.
Some pieces are like discovering your feet for the first time. With our bare hands, we make sense of a senseless world.
Maybe if you work hard enough and make that path, one day about here, artists can be heralded in the streets, greeted by bowls and bowls of fruit offered at their feet.
And we go back to the thoughts of our protagonist, once again pondering, am I an artist?
That was an absolutely outstanding piece of work. I don't know if Frenetic Arts is with us on the call, but I would like to say it gave me chills. I have goosebumps. Thank you so much for sharing that with us. That was absolutely outstanding. It is now my pleasure to introduce our keynote speaker. He is a proud St. Lucian and a well-respected international development leader, now serving the Caribbean as Deputy Secretary General of the Caribbean Community Secretariat, CARICOM. Culture is important to CARICOM because it is an essential part of the foundation that brings us together as a region. Our common heritage, shared history, and identity. The richness and diversity of our Caribbean civilization is presented to the world through our norms, values, and the various indigenous art forms that represent who we are. Our cultural expressions have inspired global imagination and brought international recognition to the region. The Caribbean is a leading cultural brand and we must place value on the tremendous impact that our creative sector has had and will continue to have on the sustainable development of our region. As a leader of the Caribbean community, he advocates for enhanced recognition of Indigenous Caribbean culture and promotes our contribution to human development by presenting who we are to the world. In his own words, our creatives and artists are the conduits through whom we share who we are and support them. And to support them, we must remain a priority as we continue developing our people and our region. Please join me in welcoming to the virtual floor, Dr. Armstrong Alexis.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Madam Master of Ceremonies, honorable ministers with responsibility for culture, Dr. Norbert Richard Ibrahim, the Assistant Secretary General of the Organization of African, Caribbean, and Pacific States, Mr. Frederick Ethel, Deputy Head of Mission, the Delegation of the European Union to Jamaica, Belize, the Bahamas, Turks and Caicos Islands, and the Cayman Islands, Dr. Sadia Sanchez Vegas, the Director and the representative of UNESCO Culture Cluster Office in the Caribbean, Ms. Debbie Emandi, the Project Officer in the Office of Research of the UWI, representatives of the European Union, the OACP, the UNESCO, the UWI, my colleagues from the CARICOM Secretariat, other partners, directors of culture of CARICOM member states, artists, cultural professionals, and creative entrepreneurs, representatives of the media, ladies and gentlemen. It is a pleasure and a privilege for me to represent the Secretary General of the Caribbean Community, Her Excellency Dr. Carla Barnett, who has sent warm greetings and best wishes for a successful launch of the project Creative Caribbean, an ecosystem of play for growth and development, as well as for the impactful implementation of the program. Dr. Barnett is currently attending to other critical matters of the community overseas and has asked me to stand in to deliver these remarks on her behalf. I begin my address to you this morning by commending UNESCO, the UWI, CARICOM, and other partners for the strong partnership which has led to the development of this vital initiative, and to express on behalf of our region my gratitude to the European Union and the Organization of African, Caribbean, and Pacific States for the financial and technical support that has made this 11th EDF allocation of Euro 3 million to the Caribbean under the Towards a Viable Cultural Industry, supporting the cultural and creative sectors in the ACP countries program a reality. Master of Ceremonies, I'm grateful for this opportunity to reflect with you on the importance and value of the culture and creative sector of our region, and on the ways in which it is expected that this project will make a difference to the creative economy and creative ecosystems of our region. As the architects of the project conceptualized and articulated, Creative Caribbean brings together important elements of the cultural ecosystem to build on the deeply rooted Caribbean creative ecosystem of play. This cultural pattern of play has produced carnivals and festivals which have been reproduced in over 70 diasporic spaces worldwide. Play is the thread that connects the dynamic musical inventiveness of reggae and dancehall, calypso and soca, punta, bouillon, compa, salsa, and dennery segment, and the list goes on. Play is also inscribed in the steel pan, the only acoustic musical instrument to be invented in the 20th century. Play is pervasive in the literary work of the many internationally celebrated writers of the region, including 2 Nobel laureates for literature, and through our publishers who have enriched the global literary canon. Play, ladies and gentlemen, is the richness of our performing arts in dance, theater, storytelling, just to name a few. Through this pervasive ecosystem of play, the Caribbean continues to be culturally expressive, prolific, and defiant, while seeking to overcome its vulnerabilities and challenges. The ecosystem that this project seeks to develop, like the system in natural sciences from which the term has been derived, is a dynamic, interconnected network of the key components of a strong creative economy, namely innovative industry actors, audiences or consumers, supported by an enabling environment of policy, legislation, incentives, business support services, financial and intellectual property management. A strong ecosystem will enable a more resilient creative sector that is better able to withstand shocks such as that which has been experienced during the COVID-19 pandemic, and will enable the creative sector to have a sustained positive impact on the lives of artists and entrepreneurs, as well as on economic growth and social resilience in the Caribbean region. Capacity building of festivals as catalysts for creative industry development is a strong feature of this project. And in many ways, a well-managed festival can be seen as a microcosm of how a thriving creative ecosystem can in fact function. Festivals mounted in our context in a wide variety of creative disciplines generate streams of direct income from sponsorship, tickets and merchandise sales, but also several secondary revenue streams through expenditure on airline tickets, hotel accommodation, car rentals, as well as hair, makeup, and fashion services for the patrons, catering, media and promotion, technical support for sound, stage, lights, and festival management, street vendors, and the list goes on. National festivals and the region's premier mega Caribbean Festival of Arts, the CARIFESTA, stand to benefit from capacity building activities to be implemented through this project. The marketplace component of CARIFESTA, which facilitates business interactions between Caribbean artists and international buyers and investors, festival and venue managers, is an area to be targeted for expansion when CARIFESTA returns to our regional calendar of events, hopefully very soon. Governments of the Caribbean community have increasingly been acknowledging the value and contribution of the cultural and creative industries to the growth and development of economies in the region. Creative industries represent leverage points for building globally competitive exports and driving the development of national innovation systems and employment. The 26th intersessional meeting of the heads of government held in the Bahamas in February 2015 acknowledged the vital role of the cultural and creative industries and declared its intention to take steps to strengthen the enabling environment to support the sector's further development. This led to the launch of the Creative and Cultural Industries Innovation Fund by the Caribbean Development Bank, the CDB, in December 2018, which was established with a start-up capital of US $2.6 million. Towards the development of a comprehensive policy framework to guide the continued development of the sector, priority actions in draft regional development strategy for the cultural industries were adopted by Ministries of Culture at COSOD 22 on Culture and Youth in Guyana in February 2012. Presented to them by the Regional Task Force for Cultural Industries, comprising public officials and industry experts. Ministers of Trade identified culture and entertainment services as a priority sector, leading to the development of a regional strategic plan for cultural and entertainment services in December 2017. What Creative Caribbean will do is provide resources to action several elements of these strategies, with a focus on direct support to artists and cultural entrepreneurs, while establishing a creative content hub, expanding the UNESCO concept of creative cities, developing and model legislation for creative industry development acts to be introduced in member states of CARICOM, and improving data collection on this sector. However, ladies and gentlemen, as someone who has a strong roots in the youth movement in the region, permit me to say a few words on the importance of the nexus between culture and youth in the Caribbean. The report of the CARICOM Commission on Youth Development, Eye on the Future, Investing in Youth Now for Tomorrow's Community, acknowledged, and I quote, "Youth are the backbone of the creative industries in CARICOM, both as consumers and producers, and represent over 60% of the region's population," unquote. The Cultural Times report published in 2015 by UNESCO, CISAC and Ernst & Young reported that global creative economy employed nearly 29.5 million people and generated in excess of $2.25 trillion in revenue, or 3% of the world's GDP in 2013. However, significantly, it is reported that the creative industries employ more persons aged between 15 and 29 than any other sector in which young people are engaged. As such, the development and advancement of the creative industry development and its contribution to wealth creation and employment must be treated as a central pillar to national development and should form a critical part of any strategy to address youth employment and inclusion in the Caribbean. Furthermore, we need to address a development strategy that leverages our demographic dividend in youth and our comparative advantage in culture and sports as a game changer in national and regional development initiatives. I would also add that for CARIFESTA to continue to thrive and remain relevant to the people of the Caribbean region, youth involvement in the festival must be scaled up and mainstreamed. Greater attention to the specific needs and interests of our young people to encourage them to attend and participate in CARIFESTA is vital. The outstanding performances and expressions of young artists, their creative energy and commitment to the ideals of the festival is the foundation upon which CARIFESTA is built and will continue. By putting more programs in place to nurture the creative talents of our young people at the national and regional levels and propel their success in the global arena, CARIFESTA is poised to make an even stronger impact on the region and its people. In keeping with global trends, the impact of COVID-19 pandemic on the culture and tourism sectors in the Caribbean has been devastating. Since March 2020, the region has experienced widespread cancellation of national festivals and carnivals. Stage shows and other mass events designated to uplift and portray our Caribbean identities have come to a halt. Having a high concentration of self-employed creatives and cultural entrepreneurs with small, medium, and medium-sized enterprises, the sector in the region has been severely impacted upon by the pandemic. Icons of our creative expressions have gone to the great beyond, and I pause to pay homage to Dexter Black's Stewart, a masterful genius of soca music art form, who recently passed away in his home country, Trinidad. Blacks would have been one of the region's leaders and advocates for better conditions and support for arts and culture in the Caribbean. And we must use this occasion today to bring to the fore the issues he recently advocated for. The UNESCO Global Study titled Cultural and Creative Industries in the Face of COVID-19 in June 2021 reported some 10 million job losses in the sector in 2020 and revenue losses of 20 to 40% across a range of countries, with the biggest fallout in economic contribution to the creative industries observed in urban centers rather, where these industries are heavily concentrated. I am aware that many of you who are participating in this launch today participated in the regional dialogue on culture in a COVID-19 environment convened virtually by the CARICOM Secretariat in May 2020. The dialogue, which was attended by participants from 19 countries and partner agencies in the region, highlighted that the COVID-19 pandemic exacerbated the many inequalities that already exist, that the CARICOM member states and associate members don't have the structures, policies, and resources to effectively cushion this and other major disasters for the creative sector through emergency relief grants, unemployment payments, and the like. That professional associations in the region are also not equipped and sufficiently strong to provide relief and support, and that there has been insufficient government and private sector investment in and incentives for the sector over a protracted period of time. And this needs to be addressed urgently if we are to build a more resilient creative sector. I will, however, acknowledge that at least 8 governments did provide stimulus for relief packages, either specifically for the sector or a more general package from which artists benefited, and that there were initiatives by the Caribbean Development Bank and Caribbean Export to provide some assistance to artists and cultural entrepreneurs facing challenges during this period. It is evident, ladies and gentlemen, that as we look to the future, within CARICOM, culture serves as both enabler and driver of sustainable development by providing unique historical and contemporary contexts, cultural value, and assets that facilitate sustainable, inclusive development outcomes. The foundation of the CARICOM construct is located in the common historical and cultural heritage of the region, in our shared traditions and aspirations. Culture helps to promote respect for diversity, spirit of community, national and regional identity, and social inclusion. It is also critical for ensuring that young people appreciate the value and contribution of the Caribbean civilization to the world. Our culture must forever be a bridge both to our past and into our future. Our culture is what makes us truly Caribbean. Cultural expressions born out of people's experiences have in a profound way allowed the voices of the marginalized to be heard, development processes in the region, and have provided a pathway for many to international success. Globally recognized and celebrated voices like those of Bob Marley and Peter Tosh have reverberated in every corner of the world, calling for social justice, equality, and human rights. As a region, we are at a critical juncture, a crossroads, where we have the opportunity to chart a new course forward as we emerge from a debilitating pandemic. Creative Caribbean is providing critical resources at the right time to invest in the individual and collective advancements of creatives in the region. I look forward to the implementation of the project and pledge the continued support and commitment of the Caribbean Community Secretariat. We are at your disposal and pledge to work with all partners and stakeholders to ensure our collective success. I leave you with the words of 2 Caribbean icons, the Right Excellent Marcus Mosiah Garvey, Pan-Africanist and national hero of Jamaica, There is a world of opportunities awaiting us, and it is for us through unity of will and purpose to say we shall and we will play our part upon the great human stage of activity. We shall cause men to regard us as equals in achievements in industry, commerce, politics, science, art, and education. We shall create the mighty region and cause our children to call us blessed. And in the Calypso legend, Black Stallion said to us, West Indian unity is very easy. If we only rap to our people and tell them, there is one race from the same place that make the same trip on the same ship. So we see much push, one common intention for a better life in the region, for the woman and with children. That must be the ambition of the Caribbean man. The Caribbean man, the Caribbean man. I thank you.
Thank you.
So we must push one common intention, it's for a better life in the region, for the woman and we children. That must be the ambition of the Caribbean man, the Caribbean man, the Caribbean man.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Dr. Alexis. That has definitely got to be the best ending to any keynote speech I have heard. Thank you so much for your very rich and detailed address and for underscoring the importance of creative and cultural industries to the social and economic development of our region, particularly for highlighting the importance of access to finance in helping to move the needle forward, and culture as a pathway to the sustainable livelihoods of our region's youth. Thank you so very much. It definitely stirred a lot for me, got me thinking about a lot of things, and so we do appreciate your contribution this morning. Dr. Alexis also spoke about play, ladies and gentlemen. And if you've been wondering how the project ended up being entitled An Ecosystem for Play, Growth and Development, you're about to find out. It is my pleasure to introduce my colleagues moving on to the next item on our agenda. They are the partner focal points and a part of our steering committee, and they will now share with us an overview of the Creative Caribbean project. Please welcome to the virtual floor, Program Specialist for Culture at the UNESCO Cluster Office for the Caribbean, who is also a trained archaeologist, a classical guitarist, and a competition level ballroom dancer, Mr. Yuri Peshkov. Accompanying him, we have Program Manager for Culture and Community Development at the CARICOM Secretariat. She is in her own right an accomplished musician, a Caribbean cultural advocate, an expert in international communication, Dr. Hilary Brown. And rounding out the trio, we have our distinguished academic, senior lecturer in cultural studies at the Institute of Caribbean Studies and the Reggae Studies Unit at the University of the West Indies, Dr. Sonia Stanley Naya. Over to you, colleagues.
Thank you very much for this wonderful introduction. Let me just share the presentation that we will deliver with colleagues, and we will basically explain the concept, background, and what we're planning to achieve with this project. So The application was submitted from the three partners, UNESCO, CARICOM, and UWI, under the 11th European Development Fund of the Secretariat of the African, Caribbean, and Pacific Group of States, supporting the cultural and creative sectors in the ACP countries. So we applied for the Caribbean states, and currently there are 15 Caribbean states that are eligible for the applications to the funds, namely Antigua and Barbuda, the Bahamas, Barbados, Belize, Dominica, the Dominican Republic, Grenada, Guyana, Haiti, Jamaica, St. Kitts and Nevis, St. Lucia, St. Vincent and the Grenadines, Suriname, Trinidad and Tobago. The funds provided by the EU and the ACP amounts to 3 million euro, and the length of the project is 40 months. While the 75% of the 3 million fund will go to the sub-granting to the third parties. So those are the funds that will be delivered to the beneficiaries. Another portion, 16.2%, will be placed again for the third parties and initiatives for skills, knowledge, evaluation, and monitoring. And the rest are the project management and indirect costs. Well, the project team, as we all know, the United Nations Educational, Scientific, and Cultural Organization, the Caribbean Community, and the University of the West Indies are the three partners that will implement this project. Just briefly about ourselves. The UNESCO was born on 16 November back in 1945. As of now, we have 192 members and 12 associate member states. There is a structure in UNESCO governed by the Executive Board and the General Conference, and headed, the Secretariat of UNESCO is headed by the Director General. Basically, UNESCO is headquarters placed in Paris, but we have more than 50 field offices around the world to operate. So one of such offices is established in Kingston, Jamaica, that is covering 20 English and Dutch-speaking Caribbean. Another office of UNESCO is based in Havana, Cuba, that is operating within Havana and Haiti and Dominican Republic. And the national office we have also in Port-au-Prince, Haiti. The UNESCO mission is to contribute to the building of a culture of peace, the eradication of poverty, sustainable development, the intercultural dialogue through education, the sciences, culture, communication, and information. Of course, UNESCO is greatly contributing to the achievement of the Sustainable Development Goals identified by the Agenda 2030. The cultural and creative industries become essential for inclusive economic growth, reducing inequities, and achieving the goals set out by the 2030 Sustainable Development Agenda. It's also noticeable that UNESCO operates with 2005 Convention for the Protection and Promotion of the Diversity of Cultural Expressions that is actually at the heart of the creative economy. Through this convention, the project will also operate and support the creation, production, distribution, and access to cultural goods and services. Briefly about CARICOM, the Caribbean community was established by the Treaty of Chalmers on 4th of July, 1973. It's actually the oldest surviving integration movement in the world that is comprised of 20 small mainland and island nations, 15 member states, and 5 associate members. And the community is home for approximately 16 million citizens, 60% of whom are under age 30. The main pillars of cooperation are economic integration, foreign policy coordination, human and social development and security towards the promotion of a unified, inclusive, resilient, and sustainable community. As we know, the CARICOM Secretariat is established in Georgetown, Guyana, and the Secretariat provides technical and administrative support to the organs and bodies of the community, the highest being the Conference of Heads of the Government. And culture is essential to regional integration and development and has distinguished the region globally, as we just heard from the keynote speech. The University of the West Indies, established back in 1948, the UE is an internationally respected regional university with some 50,000 students and 5 campuses located in Jamaica, Trinidad and Tobago, Barbados, in the 5 islands, Antigua and Barbuda, and also the open campus. It will offers over 800 certificate, diploma, undergraduate and postgraduate degree options in food and agriculture, engineering, humanities and education, law, medical sciences, science and technology, social sciences, culture, creative and performing arts, and also sports. As the region's premier research academy, the UB foremost objective is actually driving the growth and development of the regional economy. It is noticed that UE is ranked by Times Higher Education among the top 600 universities in the world for 19 and 2020, and the 40 best universities in Latin America and the Caribbean for 18 and 19, and the only Caribbean-based university to make these prestigious lists. So those are about the leading agencies, the partnership that is established. And now let me introduce the Creative Caribbean implementation team. Well, the implementation team is hosted by the UNESCO Cluster Office for the Caribbean, based in Kingston, Jamaica, and consists of actually 3 persons. So those are your key persons that you will need to address in applying to the offers of the Creative Caribbean. Project coordinator and our master of ceremony, Oleinka Jacobs-Boni. Thank you. Project communication specialist, Nadine Newsom. Thank you very much, Nadine, for bringing all of us together in this meeting. Project assistant, Christina Williams, whose name will appear not once on the dedicated website. So thank you very much. This was my slot in the presentation, and I give it forward to Dr. Sonia Stelina, please.
Thank you very much, Yuri. And my special welcome to all our colleagues and friends in this launch. The value of this project could not be lost on anyone for a region such as the Caribbean, a region with arguably the highest creativity quotient per capita. But let me briefly outline that there are key value-added dimensions in teamwork, innovation, and strategic partnerships afforded by this project. Not only are there 2 established regional institutions, the UWI, established in 1948, and CARICOM since 1973, with a track record of responding to national development problems, in partnership with an established international body, but never before has such sizable support been made available for development of the cultural and creative industries ecosystem in the Caribbean. And when we say ecosystem, we mean exactly that. Stakeholders and beneficiaries will generate new opportunities for socioeconomic growth and cultural cooperation in the Caribbean, other ACP regions, and the EU. The project's value is also in the fact that it builds on successes, best practices, and lessons learned from various initiatives across industry, government, training networks, festivals such as CARIFESTA, and prior European development funding support to projects and programs. The objectives, we cannot overemphasize the objectives of this project, which are to foster economic, human and social development of the Caribbean region by stimulating inclusive, diversified, and sustainable growth of the cultural economy. And this is to be done through the creation of jobs for women, men, and youth with a decent work framework, the creation, production, and distribution of cultural and creative goods and services, and of course, improved market access, as well as support of regional and national policies and measures. And therein again lies the entire ecosystem that we're trying to impact here. Now, the expected outputs, some of the key expected outputs are in the Consolidated Regional Master Plan for Implementation and Sustainable Development of the Caribbean Creative Industries, Caribbean Creative Content Hub, which will be established and for increased productivity of cultural and creative industries, improve competitiveness and market access, and of course, increased project-based jobs, firm revenue, and in-market access for regional cultural and creative industries through enterprise acceleration and entrepreneurial training as a result of this action. There's also going to be a regional integrated approach for funding and accelerating cultural and creative entrepreneurship to enhance socioeconomic development for cultural and creative industries actors. Cooperation strategy and framework will be developed to sustain regional CCIs and CCI in particular planning and a coalition of Caribbean creative communities. I'm going to make my remarks about the project's core theme and let's say inner logic, quite brief because so much has already been said by our keynote speaker. But let me add more pointedly that the conversations about culture, performance, play, and playing mass are also conversations about labor. What stories do Caribbean sounds, performance, fashion, dance, sport, food, and stories tell about citizenship, the politics of belonging, suppression, resilience, catharsis, memory, and identity? Our performance practices around sound, for example, the ones we have become known to produce as forms of productive labor, complementary to the labor of citizenship, of nation building, and celebration of the human, appropriately accounted for in national GDPs? This project takes us further in answering these questions. Play, in the context of this project, is also an acronym for planning and research, literacy and capacity building, accelerators and financing, yield and dissemination. So play references the Caribbean concept of playing mass, which has become a strategy of adaptation in spite of centuries of cultural suppression used to navigate social, economic, and environmental forces outside of the region's control. But let's get a little further into play. Under planning and research, we are going to absolutely consolidate research, engage in data collection and mapping of the Caribbean CCI ecosystem. L, literacy and capacity building, will see us enabling industry frameworks, product development, content production, and market access. A, accelerators and financing, we will in fact intervene where financial interventions and incubation will take shape. Yield and its dissemination will involve thematic networking, dissemination and mainstreaming, and project management. And at this time, I want to hand over to Dr. Hilary Brown of CARICOM, who will speak to the implementation modalities.
Thank you very much, Sonia. And let me also add my words of warm welcome to all of our colleagues, the artists, entrepreneurs, directors of culture, ministers. It really is a particular joy for me today to really see that through partnership, we have got to the point of launching this project. And I have to say that as much as there might have been a small team of us who pulled together this concept and introduced this idea of an ecosystem of play, which I think we can brand as uniquely Caribbean. But I have to say that this project built on a couple of decades of consultations with many of the artists, the members of the cultural community who are online with us today, and some of those who have moved on. We know, we always used to say that this is a region more consulted than helped. And so it really is a pride and joy today to have this project come to fruition. And, you know, have to acknowledge the support that we have received from trade ministers, culture ministers, our heads of government, and all of the lobbying that we have done for many years. And so it really is wonderful. And, you know, I think that the presentation from Frenetic Arts too really spoke poignantly to the issues that we have been grappling with for so many years. And so here it is. We have a significant pool. It can't do everything, but it can certainly make a difference, I think, in terms of so many of the goals and objectives we've had over the years that we have not been able to realize. So I wanted to speak very quickly, next slide please, to some of what the project sets out to do. And Yuri in his presentation highlighted that 75% of the resources will be granted directly to artists and entrepreneurs in the industry. And so the main activity of the project really is distributing grants. And we conceptualize 3 types of grants: enabling environment, industry grants, and training. And in terms of the enabling environment, because of course in an ecosystem, the artists, audiences, actors have to be supported by an environment that facilitates business, that facilitates the play economy that we are advancing. And so some of those enabling environments will cover grants. Eligible grants will include national artist registries, which we know a number of countries have for some time been trying to advance. We know that Trinidad and Tobago has a very advanced model, which several other member states have adopted. And so this will provide an opportunity to really advance that. And we know artist registries are key because they are the basis on which governments and our international partners provide incentives to the sector. We need to know who are the artists and they need to be registered. Visual literacy and performing arts is an area of focus of this project, and we certainly will be giving support in that area. Grants will be provided to advance programs, curriculum, training in the performing arts, as well as visual literacy, which I don't think we have emphasized as much in the region so far. And we know that an ecosystem and a creative economy, it has to be data-driven. And so certainly data intelligence is an important part of the grant making. Cultural policy provides that framework and that overall enabling environment, as does appropriate legislation. And you would have heard Deputy Secretary General speak to Creative Industry Development Acts, which I think at this time we still only have Barbados that has such an act that has been passed. And so we hope to advance that through this project. National implementation plans, creative cities. We certainly want to enable this concept within the region. We know already that in Jamaica, Kingston has been designated a creative city of music. We would like to see that happening in many more Caribbean countries. And this project will provide that capacity building and enable that. And of course, institutional strengthening of various kinds. Within the industry-related grant schemes, we have a particular emphasis on festival development, marketplace and business exchanges, realizing that festivals is something that we do well in the region, and we would like to enable further development of festivals and to use them as a platform for increased market access for creatives outside the region. Professional work placement grants and artist mobility grants get at the need of that professional development, capacity building, where artists need to get to different fora, different industry events where they can network and advance their professional development. So support will be provided for that. Content production, of course, and recognizing that within the region, our professional arts associations really need to be strengthened. And we would love to see more regional professional artists associations. A few of them have started, have been challenged, and we would really like to see a resurgence because to have a strong industry, you really do need to have strong professional associations lobbying for, supporting, providing relief within the industry. And of course, scaling grants for new ideas to make them bigger, to advance them, and ultimately to export them. And then with respect to our training grants, and so in this first round of launching, we will be launching enabling environment and industry grants. The training grant scheme will be launched a little later in the year. But to give you a sense of that, visual literacy and performing arts scholarships to schools, to advanced curricular training programs, and also transversal capacity building workshops, where we look at what are some of the common issues that several subsectors within the creative and cultural industries need, whether that's marketing, IP, investment, financing, and look to see how we can implement capacity building workshops. So that's sort of an idea of the grant screens. Next slide, please. And then a smaller percentage of the resources goes towards what we call skills, know-how, experience, and monitoring and evaluation, or SCEM activities. And so here we will have a number of consultancies that will develop regional public goods that member states can use to build out that enabling environment for the sector. Satellite accounts are perhaps better known in the tourism industry, and certainly this project would like to develop a model satellite account for culture so that we can scale up data collection on the sector. And related to that, the design of a digital archive for visual literacy, and that will also be regional. A regional database of the Caribbean creative and cultural industries ecosystem. So again, very data-driven, trying to ensure that we have the kind of information that can inform policy, can support incentives, and generally be in a better position to assess the contribution and value of the sector to national and the regional economy. A consolidated regional master plan that builds on the previous strategies, the regional development strategy, the one for services, there's one for the export of services to Europe. And so we will look at fine-tuning an implementation plan that will bring all of those strategies together. A creative content hub developed and launched. Again, a content hub that will facilitate incubation, content development, networking, a space where a real creative space that will support content development in the region. And I've spoken to the Model Creative Industry Development Act that will be facilitated under this project, and a festival marketplace where we've been trying over the years to expand CARIFest as a festival marketplace where talent scouts, managers of international festivals and venues and events come to CARIFesto and interface and interact with artists and provide additional opportunities for their development. So within this project, we would like to advance that concept of the festival marketplace at national and regional level. So quite a few exciting projects. And as I said, really building on all of the ideas that we have received through consultation after consultation, and seeing how we could bring it together in this project. Next slide, please. Okay, so I'll move quickly through these, as I think some of this may be covered already, but the work packages within the project include generating as some of the major and key project outputs, the Consolidated Regional Master Plan for the implementation and sustainable development of CCIs in the region through data intelligence, a data-enabled ecosystem, mapping the sector, and ensuring that we're in a better position to design and position marketable products and services within the region and globally. Next slide. Literacy and capacity building, again, our play on play. Caribbean Creative Content Hub established to generate increased content, productivity of CCIs, improve competitiveness and international market access, especially across the festival marketplace and trade routes. And this will be supported by data-enabled planning and capacity building, as well as a focus on youth and visibility of content production. Thanks. Next slide. Accelerators and financing is another key part of our work packages. And these activities will use enterprise acceleration and entrepreneurial training to drive the Content Hub and Creative City projects, while enabling our CCIs to develop market-ready products and services and expand their markets. CCIs will also gain new access to financing through innovative financing mechanisms, also facilitated through the project. Next, please. And finally, yield and dissemination. And this is where we really look to the sustainability of the project and what comes next. So activities will foster a strong cooperation framework to sustain regional CCI planning. Our work package 4 outputs will support national and regional policies and measures critical to the sustainability of the Creative Caribbean project. And our work package 5 will ensure that the proposed action is well coordinated and managed. Next. Okay, so essentially, that is the overview of the main activities that will be advanced by the project, the grant making, as well as the SCEM activities. And this is a graphic representation of how we see the different components, the different work packages sort of working together. And really in support of, in advance of what is already a very established and recognized tradition of play within our region. So thank you very much. Looking forward to our implementation. And I'll turn back over to our moderator, Olenka Jacob-Spanik. Thank you.
Thank you so much, colleagues. Ladies and gentlemen, I know that was a lot of information, but as you can see, the partners put in a tremendous amount of thought into the construction of this project. And as Dr. Brown rightly mentioned, really it's many years of hopes, dreams, and wishes. And we put it all in this project, and we have every intention of accomplishing it. And as Dr. Ibrahim said, it is ambitious. It is indeed ambitious, but we are Caribbean people, and that's what we do. We do ambition, and we do it very, very well. So now we're going to move on to our next cultural performance. Another video recorded performance that may be familiar to some of you. The song We Got This was written to uplift the Caribbean during the pandemic by the award-winning songwriting duo of Cheyenne Jones and Ian Webster, otherwise known as the Water Street Boys. Please enjoy.
We're gonna make it.
I am a voice of hope, and I just wanna let you know that I believe in our strength as a people and the promise of a bright tomorrow.
And I want you to believe and trust.
I know God is watching over us, and I believe if we all come together now, everything will be alright. If we only press on,
Strength is the bond and the ties among this generation.
unite and be one, the fight will be won.
Come on, Caribbean.
Don't worry about the circumstances, don't stress about the fears and the madness. Together we will take our chance at life and conquer it. Don't worry about the circumstances, don't stress about the fears and the madness. Together we will take our chance at life, 'cause we got this. We got this. We got this. We got this. Caribbean people, we got this.
We got this. We got this. We got this. I am the strength within, yeah.
I know that we will rise again, and I'm sure we can lift on people.
It's a fight and we must all be shared. I can't believe this day has come.
For our sake, we must keep distance. Everyone looking out for their neighbor. Islands in the Caribbean sun.
It's time to be strong, the battle is on.
For the future of each generation. Every daughter and son united as one.
Sing on, Caribbean.
Don't worry about the circumstances. Don't stress about the fears and the madness. Together we will take our chance at life and conquer it. Don't worry about the circumstances. Most come. Don't stress about the fears and the madness. Together we will take our chance. No stress. We got this. We got this. We got this. We got Caribbean people, we got this. Hear me? Rough it tough, it dirty enough, still have to get up. Full firm inna the giddy and we have to stand up. As virus a rush, we still can't touch, we still can't crush we. We have faith, hope, strength, protection of the Almighty. And we prayed up, yes, yes, we prayed up. And we stayed up, yes, yes, we stayed up. Head high full of confidence, we not keep bucket and then we never gave up. Big up essential workers, rest in peace, we fallen soldiers. Corona can't conquer we, West Indies, one love and unity. Don't worry about the circumstances. Don't stress about the fears and the madness. Together we will take our chance at life, 'cause we got this. We got this. We got this. We got this.
Yes, indeed, we got this, and we hope that through this project, we will say that we got you. That's the whole objective. Thank you so much to the artist who gave us permission to use their work in today's launch. We do appreciate you, and we appreciate the effort that you put into being a part of our Creative Caribbean and making our Creative Caribbean what it is. So now we are going to move swiftly into the meat of the matter, and I have the pleasure of presenting to you a summary of the grant calls that will be launched actually today and later in the year. Just a quick reminder that this will be followed by Q&A, so please do pop your questions and comments in the Q&A area of the chat. If you are on YouTube, your questions will be shared with us here in the Zoom room, so we will aim to respond to as many of these questions as possible in the time remaining. So I'm going to share my screen with you so that I can Okay, I'm trying to, there we go, slideshow. Okay, so as you have heard, there's an extensive portfolio of grants that we will be offering over the 3-year period, over the lifetime of this project. The calls that I'll be sharing with you today are the ones that, as I mentioned, we will be launching as of today and during the course of this year. Sorry, I'm just trying to move to my next slide. Okay, let me try and apologies. Okay, so we're starting out with the Enabling Environment Grant Schemes. A description of these grants: they are for national cultural policies and creative industry related legislation, initiatives to provide business support services and improve the business climate, initiatives to strengthen institutions and associations that support the creative industry sector, accelerators and grants to develop key products, services and events for creative cities, including education and cultural programming, festival and co-working spaces. So the grants that we are launching in this category are the National Artist Registry, up to $47,000 US, Visual Literacy and Performing Arts, also up to $47 US, Cultural Policy, National Implementation Plans, Legislation, Institutional Strengthening, also for the same amount of up to $47,000 US, and Creative City Subsector Accelerators up to $95,000 US. Our next grant scheme that we'll be launching as of today is the Industry Grant Scheme. So this will cover work placements and attachments to regional or international festivals and events, industry institutions, festivals, studios, theaters, galleries, etc., proposals to organize accelerators, to develop new and emerging talent, scaling operations and expanding audiences, strengthening festival management, capacity building and data collection, organizing business-to-business fora within festivals. So as you can see there, we have 7 grants that we will be launching. Festival development, work placement, and knowledge transfer, that is 1 grant, up to $179,000 US. artist mobility, up to $17,000 US, and that essentially covers the idea of knowledge transfer or attending international festivals and events with a view to better understanding and knowledge transfer within the industry. Product development and content production, up to $29,000 US. Small grants for emerging creative content originators, up to $19,000 US. I'd just like to pause here to say that in terms of the target groups for these grants, both industry and enabling environment, we would very much like to encourage the participation of underrepresented groups, as well as young people and women, and also emerging industries within the different sectors. So for example, if you happen to be a circus performer, you are very much eligible to participate in this grant scheme. If you are a musician and you have a heavy metal band or rock band, you're also eligible. So it's not limited to what we call the traditional and otherwise well-known industries and sectors in our region. We are very, very, very much interested in ensuring that we cast the net as wide as possible and that everyone is included, all the different sectors and industries. And even if we haven't listed your sector here, please know that you are welcome to apply. Also indigenous groups and folk groups, as well as folk and indigenous practitioners, we do encourage you to apply as well. Not only for the small grants for emerging content creators, but for all of our grants. Scaling grants for export-ready creatives, creative and cultural industry festival, business exchange networks and fora. The previous grant up to $29,000 US, and the festival business exchange networks up to $35,000 US. Small grants for professional associations up to $19,000 US. Now this last grant that we have developed is quite important, because as you will know, we have a number of professional associations in the region that require very focused and intensive capacity building and support, and quite often this is not available. So we made a concerted effort to include our professional associations. They are part of the ecosystem. They're a very important part of the ecosystem. And so this is one of the grants that we felt was extremely important to ensuring that our creative and cultural industries in the region have the voices that they need to advocate on their behalf. I do apologize for this technical here. Right, so who are the eligible persons for these grant schemes? So you need to be established since 2017 in one of the 14 CARICOM member states and the Dominican Republic. Remember, we are covering 14 CARICOM member states and the Dominican Republic. Those are the countries that are eligible for this grant. And when we say legal person, we do mean that you need to be registered either as self-employed, if you are a self-employed practitioner, or as a business or as an association. This is a very important part of being able to access these grants. Have directly implemented during the last 2 years, so in this case, up to 2022, at least one project in the cultural and creative sector for at least 50% of the amount of the grant requested. So it is important that you are also in a position to prove that you are making this contribution. And please remember, it does not necessarily have to be a financial contribution. It can be what we call sweat equity. It can be in kind, but it is very important for you to share with us when you are applying for these grants your contribution of more than 50% towards the project, the program, or the activity that you are wishing to have funded. To be directly responsible for the preparation and management of the activities being funded. Yes, you can partner with other organizations, but it would be quite difficult for us to support you if you are applying, say, for example, on behalf of an organization or an activity that you are not responsible for or not a part of. So it is important that collaboration happens, but it's also important that the organizations, entities, and individuals are directly responsible for the management of the funds that will be dispersed. So selection criteria and weighting. This is always of particular interest to those of us who are applying for grants. The relevance of the project, objectives, priorities of call, etc., 40 points. Innovation and originality, 10 points. Experience of main applicants and partners, 20 points. Regional collaboration, 10 points. Commercial viability and sustainability, 10 points. Budget, 10 points. Now, it is possible to apply for these grants if you are not conducting a commercial activity. However, it will be important to be able to underscore the sustainability of the activity that you are proposing to fund. So it does not have to be commercial, but it does have to be sustainable. And as you can see, the relevance of the project and the priorities and the relevance of the priorities of the call carry the heaviest weighting. The evaluation stages. The stage 1 will be eligibility and assessment. Stage 2, shortlisting and due diligence. Stage 3, project evaluation. And stage 4, contracting. Now, what do these time frames look like? So the call for proposals opens today, as I mentioned. We also have a period for requests for clarifications, which will open on April 25th and close 3 weeks later on May 14th. The submission for application will close on June 2nd. This is 6 weeks from today. Once the applications have been received and the calls are closed, we will move into the stage 1 of the evaluation, which is the eligibility assessment. And as you can see there, the date is to be confirmed. The reason we have put this down as to be confirmed is that depending on the response to the grant calls that we will be launching, we may decide to extend by a couple of weeks. So if we do have an extension of 1 or 2 weeks, the date will then change. So we decided to leave that open. The same applies to stage 2, which is shortlisting and due diligence, and also project evaluation. What we can confirm is that contracting will happen between 8 to 10 weeks after the submission of the application closes. So 8 to 10 weeks from June 2nd, 2022. So that brings me to the end of this summary of grant schemes. We do have a website dedicated to the project, which you see here and is currently live. There you will be able to find out a lot more detailed information of the grant schemes. I just gave you a brief overview to give you an idea and to orient your thought process around the grant schemes. We have an email for general queries, creativecaribbean@unesco.org. And for emergency matters, please contact Christina Williams, who is our project assistant, at cswilliams@unesco.org. This website and these emails will be put in the chat, both on YouTube and in the Zoom room. so that you are able to copy and paste them as needed. Thank you very much for your attention, and I do apologize once again for the technical delays with this particular part of the program. We are now going to jump straight into Q&A because it's time for us to hear from you. I see here that we have a number of comments and also questions. So I'm going to, some of them have already been answered, but I am going to read out these questions in case they will be of benefit to others. So can state agencies apply for the grants available? Yes, state agencies, departments, and parastatal organizations can apply for support under this grant. Another question here is there a format to apply for this program? As you just saw, there is a format to apply for this program. Also, I would invite you to go directly to the website, which we will put in the chat, and the format for application is described there in detail. If you have any further questions, of course, you can contact us. Another question here, will the presentation be made available to participants? Yes, it's absolutely possible for the presentations to be made available to the participants. And a question also here from Leah Craig Chatterton. Are there any plans in place in this project re-enhancing, developing in some instances, the legal legislative framework to foster a harmonized approach within CARICOM? Now, I do not see that there has been a response to this question, so I would like to put this question to both Dr. Alexis and Dr. Brown. Are there any plans in place in this project re-enhancing, developing, in some instances, the legal legislative framework to foster a harmonized approach within CARICOM? Dr. Brown or Dr. Alexis, would you like to take that, please?
Oh. Thanks, Olenka. Well, I think as I had indicated earlier, one of our STEM activities, our skills, knowledge, know-how, is to develop model legislation for a Creative Industries Development Act. And that's model legislation that can be used by all member states to put forward that kind of legislation for adoption at the national level. I think too that some of the other work that we will be doing in terms of regional public goods includes work on a financing mechanism, expanding what we have already. We know we have the Creative and Cultural Industries Innovation Fund, ensuring that we strengthen that, we expand it, that we look at ways of getting more of the financial sector on board in supporting the creative sector. Grants are wonderful, but we know we also need capital and loans and, for business to really thrive. So incentives and financing and legislation, I would say, are three of the areas that we will be putting some attention to in terms of how we can coordinate that across the region. Yes, thanks.
So much, Dr. Brown. We have a question also from Melissa Jimenez. Have the documents on the offerings being published yet for review? They are on our website, and Christina Williams will be putting the website address in the live Zoom chat, and it will also be put into the YouTube chat. We have a question, I think, from YouTube here. We have a number of questions. I'm going to start with the first one. How can NGOs apply for funding related to cultural research and documentation for future generation education and preservation? I don't know if Dr. Brown or Dr. Sonia Stanley-Naya would like to take that question. How can NGOs apply for funding related to cultural research and documentation for future generation education and preservation?
Thank you, Olainka. And that's a really good question, but really and truly, it sounds as though we are being asked to provide project ideas that people could in fact generate for applications. And I would want to suggest that that question be posed when we have that period of responding to questions from potential applicants during that first 3-week period.
Thank you very much, Dr. Stanley-Naya.
I don't know if Dr. Brown would want to respond as well, but it seems to me quite straightforward.
Sure. I endorse what Sonia has said, and essentially to say, send us your proposal. We would love to support NGOs in data intelligent, data related work. So send us the proposal. You know, I think that is how we would negotiate, support, enable. The proposal has to come from you. So I would say, go ahead and send it in. Thanks.
Let me also add.
Thank you so much, Dr. Brown. Please go ahead, Yuri. Yes.
Yes, I mean, in the grant schemes that were just presented, there is a slot for data intelligence. And as Dr. Brown and Dr. Sonia and I said that, you know, this is if you have a good idea, great idea, you'll have to look through the grant application and your eligibility within the program. So that's where I mean, your creativity comes, and then it will be assessed appropriately by the committee.
Thank you so much, Yuri. So we have some other very interesting questions here. What is, and I will please ask Yuri, Dr. Brown, and Dr. Sonia Stanley-Naya to remain available to respond to these questions. So what is the thinking about our Caribbean creative dependencies and autonomies through the building up of this granting or supporting framework? So I would like to respond to that, but then also invite my colleagues to respond to that. Dependencies and autonomies, a part of the work that we are doing is actually to move towards sustainability. And as a matter of fact, I would like to add that if you are not aware of business support agencies or individuals in your respective countries, I would very much encourage you to identify them, because one of the things we do not want is that if you are a recipient of this grant, it plugs your gaps and then you're back at square one. We are definitely focused on sustainability. We're definitely focused on autonomy. And a part of this grant scheme is to ensure that that happens through the support that we can provide, not only through granting, but also through the networks that will be developed as a part of this activity. Drs. Brown and Stanley-Naya, would you like to respond?
I think you've responded well, Olainka. So
okay,
no, anything else to add?
Yeah. Thank you so much. Another question here about the diaspora. Can members of the diaspora be involved if our projects are focused on cultural and community building of the region and its diaspora? Who would like to take that question?
Well, I think there are many questions that I can see quite technical, and it also relates to the rules and regulation and also application guidelines and the form itself. So as of now, the financial support provided under the criteria that were actually in Ole Inka's presentation. So it should be a legal person and be established since at least 2017 in one of the ACP member states of the specific lot. So that means that the organization or legal person will have to be part of the beneficiary countries and established since 2017. So if a member of diaspora have this eligibility, that speaks by itself.
Thank you so much, Yuri. Ladies and gentlemen and colleagues, we are already 17 minutes over time, but I will take one or two more questions. Let me see here. You're right, Yuri, there are several questions that have been posed that are technical questions. I would say, please,
Sorry, Alenka, if I may, I mean, that's a technical question, but that was also answered by your presentation. For example, if Samantha is asking, does the 50% of the amount of the grant requested have to be per project or a total of grants over that year? So again, our guidelines suggest that the organization or applicant rather have experience in directly implementing during at least the last 2 years, at least one project in the cultural and creative sector for at least 50% of the amount of the grant requested. So that's an answer to this technical question. But again, I would advise to look at the uploaded documents on the website. And I think we can also announce that there will be a technical guidance, a video, a short video to guide you through the application process.
Thank you so much, Yuri. I do note that there are several questions relating to topics. So, you know, which topic or the other would fall under any of these grants. As I said before, we have cast our net very wide. And so please, even if you imagine that it is not a topic that would be funded by the grant, do send it through. We are certainly open to receiving your suggestions or your ideas. We do have criteria that has been stipulated by the ACP-EU that we must follow, but this does not mean that we cannot, as Dr. Ibrahim rightly said, that we cannot, you know, fund or work with organizations and activities that are relevant to our region. So we have many areas of importance, many gaps, we have many relevant topics that could be considered. Clearly, our listing is not exhaustive. And so please do not hesitate to send through an idea that you may say to yourself, no one would ever fund this. But after you have read what we have on the website and you have informed yourself of the different parameters of this grant program, please feel free to send us your innovative ideas because we will look at them and we will give them consideration. Okay, so just before handing over to our director for closing remarks, I will take one more question here. And of course, we will endeavor to respond to these questions through our Creative Caribbean email. So they will not go unanswered. We just cannot answer them all at this time. So you will hear from us, hopefully, once we have your contact details through YouTube and through Zoom. Now, we have a question here. Will there be a creative content hub in each country? This is not something we have planned at this point in time. So although I will say no to that question, is not a definitive no. It's not a part of our plans. And this is something that, if it does change, you will certainly be informed of this. So that brings us to the end of our question and answer session. Again, apologies if your question was not answered this time round. We will endeavor to respond to all questions. If we do not respond to you individually, which may be difficult, we will certainly put your questions on our webpage in the FAQs, and we will endeavor to respond to them there because they could be useful for others as well. So that is something that we will certainly ensure that we do. Now we have come to the end of our program, and we hope you found it to be informative and that you can see how Creative Caribbean can benefit you. To close out our event today, please welcome once again Dr. Sadia Sanchez Vegas, Director of the UNESCO Cluster Office for the Caribbean.
Thank you very much. Thank you so much. On behalf of UNESCO and the partners of the Creative Caribbean Joint Project, I would like to reiterate my profound gratitude to the European Union and the Organization of African, Caribbean, and Pacific States under the ACP-EU 11th EDF Culture Programme for their generous financial contribution of 3 million euros for the implementation of the project Creative Caribbean, an ecosystem of play for growth and development. On this special occasion, I am pleased to launch today, 21st April, on the World Creativity and Innovation Day, this pioneering cultural development project with respected and well-experienced partners in the region, the CARICOM Secretariat and the University of the West Indies, in the spirit of community partnerships and regional cohesion and integration. I would also like to thank the cultural and creative practitioners who have been here today and those throughout the Caribbean for their tireless efforts to contribute to a diverse, inspiring, creative society that gives us a sense of belonging. It is my pleasure to officially declare the Creative Caribbean Project launched. I wish you all an excellent rest of the day.
Thank you so much, Director. It is indeed a fantastic pleasure to say that we can now get started. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for your attention, both on YouTube and here in the Zoom room. We look forward to serving you, and once again, have a good rest of the day, and thank you for being a part of this initiative.